This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Your brain needs support, and new Ollie Brainy Chews are a delightful way to take care of your cognitive health. Made with scientifically backed ingredients like Thai ginger, L-theanine, and caffeine, Brainy Chews support healthy brain function and help you find your focus, stay chill, or get energized. Be kind to your mind and get these nootropic chews at ollie.com. That's OLLY.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Actually, okay. Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode, and I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Richard Gearhart. He's a lawyer. He's also a speaker. He's a guest on network TV, radio shows. Again, his background is attorney, but he's going to talk about this idea of intellectual property for entrepreneurs, protecting gig workers, and social media. It's going to be really interesting, and he's got a lot of cutting edge ideas. So, Richard, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me, Chris. It's great to be here.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm always scouring the globe looking for people on the cutting edge, and you're obviously one of those. Talk about your journey and how you got started.
Well, I've been an intellectual property lawyer for just ever. I graduated from law school and I went to Geneva, Switzerland to get an advanced degree in international law. And while I was there, I worked for a large international law firm called Jones Day, and came back to the United States after a couple of years and started doing intellectual property work and found out that I kind of have a knack for it. And I loved solving the problems that intellectual property presents. And so I've made it my life's work. I've been doing it now for a long, long time and never really thought about, going back. And throughout my career, I've worked in different places and companies, and most recently at Gearhart Law, where we've had practice now for about 20 years. Hard to believe, but it's been a great experience. We focus on helping entrepreneurs start their own businesses. And so my background is in the life sciences, but we also have people with expertise in software and consumer products as well. So we serve a wide variety of inventors, and we're really happy to be part of that process and really happy to support them.
Yeah, I love that. And so the next question is these overarching concepts and themes, and you have 5 secrets successful entrepreneurs use. What is that?
Well, I think in terms of 5 secrets, I would say one of them is understanding your leverage. You have to have some sort of competitive advantage that will attract people to your business and pay you money for your goods or services. So, for example, when I started Gearhart Law, I had a lot of experience in the corporate world, had worked on some fairly complex intellectual property issues, had litigation experience. But when I started out, I priced myself well below the market rate because I knew that entrepreneurs really couldn't afford large legal bills. So I was able to provide counseling and expertise that they might not be able to get otherwise. And based on that, I was able to grow my practice. I received a lot of referrals because for whatever reason, my clients found that our services were, really good for what they were trying to do. And so understanding your leverage is certainly one of the most important things I think an entrepreneur can do.
Yeah, I love that. Just basically, what I love this idea is this, the scrappy, the bootstrap startup, but then also this talking about, this importance of intellectual property, we'll talk about protection, but one thing you talk about is this idea of five lies about adoption. Actually, when you refer to adoption, we'll get that at as well. But in the area of intellectual property, what's the difference between patent, trademark, and copyright?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to explain that.
Yeah.
And lots of people, when they're first starting out, especially if they're not super familiar with the different types of intellectual property, sometimes mix up the terms. And so a patent protects technology, it protects an invention. So if you have a new widget, if you have a new service, if you have a new software program, then those types of innovations can be protected with a patent. That's different from a trademark. The trademark protects the name of the business. And so you protect the name of your services or the names of your products. And so that's different from a patent that protects the actual technology. The trademark protects the name of the business. In the law, it's considered to be a source identifier. So if a person buys your product, they know that it comes from your company, right? And so that's the role that trademarks play. So it protects your brand. The third type of intellectual property we'll talk about are copyrights, and copyrights protect original works of expression. So screenplays, music, books, sculptures, anything that has an artistic element can be protected with a copyright. And the best part about copyrights is they're free. You get them as soon as you create the work. You can register your copyright if you fill out a form. You just need to go to the Library of Congress and you can download a form there and write it up and include pictures or whatever it is that you want to protect. And you can file it with the Copyright Office. You get a copyright that way.
Yeah.
So, but those are three very different types of protection. And then there's also a fourth type that isn't talked about quite so often. It's called trade secrets. And that's if you have a secret that gives your business a competitive advantage over other people. And as long as you keep it secret, then you can maintain a trade secret. And the value of a trade secret is that if somebody misappropriates it or takes it from you, then you're able to enforce that and stop that other person from stealing your secret. It's called misappropriation of trade secrets. So those are the main types of intellectual property, but patents protect inventions, trademarks protect brands and product names and company names, and copyrights protect original works of expression.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so the other thing is a lot of the individuals are transitioning from W-2 into gig workers. So that could be like solopreneurs. It could be 1099s. And you talk about 5 ways to make sure you don't get screwed as a gig worker. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that.
Well, I think, the first thing is if you're going to be a gig worker in the gig economy, make sure that you understand the rules that you're working with your provider, and that you understand what all the deductions are going to be and what types of things that the company is going to expect from you. You want to make sure you keep good records of all of your costs and your expenses. You want to make sure that you have the proper insurance. Sometimes the gig companies will provide some insurance, but most of the time you're required to provide it on your own. And I think, making sure that you are careful if you're in a ride sharing program. Obviously, your safety is going to be very, very important. So you want to make sure that you take good care of yourself. So those are all things that you can do to make sure that if you're a gig worker and working in the gig economy, you don't get taken advantage of.
Yeah. Like I said, as a gig worker, you have a little bit more control over your time, income, your freedom, but you also have to make sure that, especially with these, where they kind of, use gig workers. So the other question you have is this idea I mean, we all know who owns you on social media and, who owns the content. And, it's kind of been, but I'm just curious what other ideas you have on this. I mean, how can people own their own content and have more control over it, have more rights over their works?
Well, for all the social media platforms, once you put it on the platform, anybody on the platform can use it, right? So you need to be aware of that. The one thing that you don't want to be doing is taking pictures from outside the platform and using or content and putting it on the platform unless you have the permission of the person that you're borrowing the content from. So if you take a picture of Michael Jordan, for example, and it's on his website, and then you copy that and you put it on your social media, technically you're infringing the copyright in his photograph, and he may get upset about that. So there was a podcast called the Oprah Winfrey Fan Club, and this podcast was run by a couple of ladies who were big Oprah Winfrey fans, but they were using the name Oprah Winfrey without her permission. And they actually ended up getting sued by Oprah Winfrey for doing this. Now, I think they stopped it and they worked it all out, but some stars, celebrities don't want their names used in that way unless they have control over it, right? Yeah. So you have to be careful about how you appropriate other people's celebrity status, how you incorporate, how you want to avoid making sure that you're using content that you didn't actually create, and that's not already on the web. And if you're a content creator and you see somebody has violated your intellectual property rights because they're copying from you, you could actually go to most of these social media platforms and you can file a takedown notice. You can ask them to please stop with the infringement. And usually if the infringement or the violation is obvious, then they will comply with your request and you can have that, taken down. So those are all things that you need to keep in mind when you're working with social media. Unfortunately, when it just comes to normal websites, if you borrow a photograph from somebody else and you don't have their permission to use it, you can be sued by the owner of the photograph. And there are companies out there right now that specialize in finding those kinds of infringements. And we routinely get inquiries from clients who say, I received this cease and desist letter. They're claiming that I used somebody else's photograph without authorization. They want $20,000. And they're like, can they really do that? And the answer is, well, yeah, they can. They can get money for copyright violations like that. And lots of times the amount that they're asking for seems pretty ridiculous, and they'll hire us to help them negotiate that value down. But you often end up paying something. It might be $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 for one of these violations, and it's so the moral of the story is if you're building a website, go purchase stock photos, make sure that you get the right pictures, and as a consequence, save yourself some trouble and some money. So yeah. I know it's crazy. We had a local library get into that problem. You'd think librarians would be all up to speed on copyrights, right? Yeah. But they innocently, doesn't matter whether you do it on purpose or not, they innocently took a photograph from another website and they used it on their library website, and they got one of these letters. I think they wanted $5,000 to as compensation for using that photo. And it seems outrageous, but this is the world we live in. And eventually we worked it out, but it did cost them some money. They had to pay. So
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, it's quite interesting. So, how can people contact you and follow you and reach out to you and check out your services and etc.
Well, so you can find me in lots of different ways, lots of different places. Gearhart Law is my law firm, and you can check us out at our website. It's www.gearhartlaw.com, spelled GearhartLaw.com. You can also find me on the Passage to Profit radio show. My wife and I co-host a show about entrepreneurs, and it's heard on 31 stations across the country. That's passagetoprofitshow.com, and there's also a podcast there. That's one of the top 3% podcasts globally. So we have a very active group of people who enjoy our information about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurism. And so those are the two places. You can check your local listings to find out what radio station you can hear Passage to Profit on. Many of the radio stations have apps that would allow you to hear the program, even if you're not in the area. And then there's also our podcast. That's at Passage, and you can find that on any of your on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Pandora, all the places where you would normally get your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And for all the audience, let's thank for coming onto the show, and be sure to give his socials a like and follow. And with that, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Chris.